Alright students, we're going to work on collecting the data for part 1 of this lab. Your ground should always be connected to this middle copper tape. The ground is over here. We have, for the first one, we're going to have our point charge connected to the 3.3 volts, so I'm going to connect that now. And we have A7, which is going to work as our probe. The A7 is going to connect to our breadboard, which is going to be connected to our probe. Notice when our probe is not connected to anything, I'm just holding in the air, that the graph reads 1.5 volts. This is just the way the system works. So as we take a measurement, it'll deviate from that 1.5. So let's reset this. When we're going through the measurements, I don't know if you can see, I've circled them, the ones that I'm going to do. We're going to start with this one here, and we're going to skip every other intersection until we get to the other side, taking 9 measurements till we get to here. And then we're going to skip a row and do the same thing. Notice I circled them. It's very light that I circled them. It's hard to see, but when we go through, we're going to do that. And we're going to use this metronome so we can take multiple sets of data at one time. It's going to help us time it so that all the measurements line up and we can analyze them together. So the metronome we're using is at webmetronome.com. It's at 120 beats per minute, which you have to set that to 120. And there's one distinct sound per every 4 beats, and that's the beat that we're going to use to move across. So take a listen. So the beat that I'm clicking my fingers on is the beat that you're going to listen to. Alright, so let's start recording data. So we're going to basically wait 2 of those beats before we actually start collecting data. And then we're going to collect data for 3 of those beats. And then we're going to wait 1 beat before we switch to the next spot. So we're going to show you how that's done.
Record, wait, measure. Up, down. Up, down. Stop.
Alright, now we're going to stop recording. And I'm going to stop this for a second so we don't have to hear that in the background. And now as you can see, we have a line of data. Each one we can take the average of, but we're going to try to make it so that these are equally spaced compared to the ones we're going to take next, so they overlay. We're going to hit add run, which is going to be a plus sign on your sheet. We're going to do this over again, and we're going to try to overlay them so that we can analyze them all at one time and then add those to our spreadsheet.
So when you add a new run, what happens is it's going to, on the same plot, we're going to go to the new line and you're going to see the data from the new line on the same plot. So that's why we're using the metronome, so that we can overlay them. Alright, so let's start that. Start. Start. Up, down, stop. So you can see here that, I wasn't perfect when I did that, but there are definite times that the 2 graphs are overlapping. So you're going to continue that for the other 2 lines, so you'll have a total of 4 overlapping. And what you'll be able to do is highlight that section when you're under analysis mode, and you'll see both of the means. So you'll see 4, but I can see both means on this right now. The top one is the first one I took, and the bottom one is the second one I took. So you'll have 2 more, and again, the top one will be the first, second, third, and fourth. A couple of things to note about when we were taking the data is that you don't want to touch the paper with your hand. So I was resting my hand on the iLab device, but not actually touching the paper. And I was also coming down as straight as I could, not at an angle, so that I could keep good contact with the paper. Just a couple of pieces of advice.
And you have to press pretty hard, so don't forget to don't do it so lightly. You got to give it a good press so you can get some contact.